others may have a very long list of grievances. They may have an implacable hostility to everything the First Minister or the SNP or the Butte House Agreement represents. But for the Greens, the reason we were unable to have confidence in the First Minister personally was his decision to needlessly end the progressive, pro-independence majority government. It is to his credit that he's taken personal responsibility and announced his resignation. I don't celebrate that in any way, but I do believe it was necessary. And in the light of that decision, a vote of no confidence in the First Minister personally would have been performative and petty, and I welcome the fact that it's been withdrawn. But a vote of no confidence in the Scottish Government as a whole, this proposal betrays the true motives of others. Chaos for the sake of chaos. Let's just consider what would happen if it passed. Let's just consider what would happen if it passed. A month to seek another government, then an election around the time that voters around the country were heading off on their summer holidays, a new government formed perhaps by August, leaving, if members will permit another viewpoint to be heard, leaving just a little more than a year and a half until the legally required dissolution for the 2026 election. And in that time, what would happen to the legislation that's urgently needed? A housing bill's just been introduced with measures on homelessness prevention and long-term rent controls. We have a need for a climate reset following the admission that Scotland is years behind where we should be on emission cuts. Or one of the few areas of climate policy that's been praised in the last couple of years, the Heat and Buildings programme, which needs legislation soon if it's going to be completed in time to accelerate the emission cuts from a previously neglected sector. All of this and much, much more would be delayed, and then after less than 2 years, yet another government, potentially with a different policy agenda altogether. Presiding Officer, fixed-term parliaments are intended to give stability, and they have done so in contrast with more than a decade of chaos in Westminster politics. It should be clear to everyone that both Labour and the Conservatives don't actually want stable self-government for Scotland. Greens do. Now, we already had the best option, a stable, progressive, pro-independence majority government, and I regret that it hasn't been allowed to continue. The government will no longer be a majority government. But minority government can work. It's happened before, and it can happen again. It's not beyond the ability of any political party in this chamber to work constructively in that context if they choose to. But a minority government must reach out and bring together a majority in Parliament. And for that to happen, it will need to remain a progressive government. A reset on climate, an acceleration of emission cuts, not defeatism. A bold commitment to equality, not a shabby compromise with a nasty, divisive culture war mentality that we see from elsewhere. And continued redistribution, which will be all the more important if an incoming UK Labour government carries out its threat to stick to Tory fiscal rules, meaning even more austerity. That's the progressive agenda, which is still capable of providing stable government for Scotland instead of the chaos that the Labour motion seeks.
Thank you.